Welcome to the Daily Mirror Racing podcast, ahead of the Derby, which runs tomorrow at Epsom. I've got the Daily Mirror's racing expert, David Mitchell, alongside me, and on the telephone, Ladbokres spokesman, David Williams. Over to you, Mr. Mitchell.
Hi Dave, I see in the paper this morning that the Amato Inn in Chalk Lane at Epsom, where the Gypsies traditionally give the winner of the Derby, has gone for rewilding and Frankie Dettori. Apparently you're well known in the Amato Inn. Have you any idea who actually chalks up the tips?
Well, I can confirm that it's not a member of my family, so we'll move on and put that rumour to bed. But it's interesting, I think, until they picked See the Stars last year, the Well hadn't actually found the winner of the Derby since 2001.
That's
so
correct.
They had an 8-year barren spell. They managed to find See the Stars last year, and of course they've gone for Godolphin's horse, 7-1 at the moment, same price as Bullet Train, but 7-1 that the Gypsies are right for Frankie.
Yeah, so it's not Gypsy Rose Williams who's involved in this?
No, she's safely at home. She's not allowed out during the summer months.
Do you think the horse has got a chance?
I think he has got a chance. I mean, it was very impressive at Goodwood. In all honesty, that trial has lost some degree of its lustre from sort of generations gone by.
You have to go back to Troy, don't you?
Yeah, but he couldn't have been more impressive when he won at Goodwood. That said, what has he beaten? He's probably not beaten a great deal, but the thing that we liked was the way in which he handled the undulations of Goodwood. That ought to stand him in good stead. By no means guaranteed, but it ought to stand him in good stead for Epsom.
Yeah, I mean, going on to the anti-post market, it's been one of the most confused build-ups for a Derby for a generation. We know a lot of the big hitters have left the money behind with St Nicholas Abbey, and then that they've come for the other Coolmore horses in recent weeks. I mean, have Ladbokres got any serious liabilities going into tomorrow?
Well, we have, yeah. I mean, you mentioned the St Nicholas Abbey and the Jan Vermeer sort of axis of where the whole market hinged. Nonetheless, it's the other Ballydoyle horse, Midas Touch, who would be the one that we would be most worried about. We've laid this to lose the keys to the company, in all honesty, since it ran as a 2-year-old. Of course, it was beaten out of sight in St Cloud by Jan Vermeer. A couple of our bigger players certainly didn't lose the faith. They're on at enormous prices, and Midas Touch, purely on the anti-post market, would be the one that we would be most worried about. It's currently 6-1, probably doesn't deserve to be 6-1. I mean, it was 14-1 straight after that Derrinstown run. Hasn't been out since, less than half the price now. We need to get that one beaten.
Yeah, Bellewstown form, though, that doesn't usually translate to Epsom on Derby Day, does it?
No, it doesn't. And of course, a lot of people will talk about that Derrinstown race in Ireland, and they'll say, it was the fastest time that it's been run for about 20 years. Well, it's the fastest ground in the past 20 years of the Derrinstown. It's not a horse that we think has got that brilliance to win a Derby. It's a bit of a sort of plodding horse. We may be proven wrong. If we are proven wrong, we'll lose a fortune.
Yeah, and time's only relevant when you're doing it anyway, isn't it?
Absolutely right, yeah. And, I think people may have just gone a little bit over the top. Listen, it's a decent horse, but put it into the pecking order with Jan Vermeer, as I say, been beaten out of the sight on 2 occasions, and, beat absolutely nothing in Ireland there last month.
But they're going to go fast, aren't they, with At First Sight being in, At First Sight, I should say, being in the field. I mean, he's the obvious pacemaker, isn't he? And both Jan Vermeer and Midas Touch are guaranteed stayers, so they're going to go off a clip, aren't they?
They're going to go off a real clip, yeah, and of course that is the reason why At First Sight is straight in. You've seen it before, however, with Henry Cecil's Derby winners, that they can win from the front. I think Bullet Train is going to be right up at the front end of the race from an early stage, so there's going to be a lot of pace there. That ought to play into the hands of the likes of Midas Touch. But we've seen it so often go wrong at Tattenham Corner. If you're in the wrong position, and my fear would be if Midas Touch hasn't got himself into position by Tattenham Corner, he is not going to have the turn of foot to win a Derby.
If you look at all the old pictures of horses coming round Tattenham Corner, it really does work out that 8 years out of 10, the actual winner is 3rd and 4th just off the rail, isn't he?
Absolutely right. And, we saw it as readily as that last year with See the Stars. He was in the perfect position in the Derby, and time again you see it. That is where the race is won and lost. If you're out of contention, it's very difficult to call it back when they come against that reverse camber. And Leicester Piggott made it, the first rule of riding the Derby, get into that position, off the rail, 3rd or 4th, and win the race from there.
You're not old enough to remember Leicester Piggott, are you?
Well, you certainly are, Dave, and I've listened to you enough times in the pub to know that it's boring enough to repeat it.
All right, we'll stick to the script, I think. I think Ted Spread's quite an important horse concerning the pace to the race as well, because, I mean, he took a real grip at Chester, didn't he? And, I mean, he won't want to be far behind, given the fact that he's going to, well, be ideally suited, I would have thought, to a mile 6 in the Ledger. So, I mean, he's another horse who's going to make sure that pace is on from the start and they keep it up all the way through.
Absolutely right. It's funny, I was chatting with Mark Tompkins. He walked the course on Thursday morning, very anxious about the ground. I mean, you know, as I talk here, I'm sitting looking out over Epsom. It could not be a more beautiful day. It's going to be, you know, good, quick ground. That would be against Ted Spread, and for that reason, you know, the pace of the race is going to be vital. Putting it into context, I think if Mark Tompkins' horse were to finish something like 5th or 6th and finish his race properly, they'd be very pleased with that. And then it'll be eyes down for Doncaster in September.
Yeah, I'm looking at our sound man, Pat Purcell, so I can tell you've got the better of the deal today anyway.
Oh, as always.
I think that the pace element will bring horses with slightly flaky pedigrees in terms of stamina. I think that's going to affect Alzir and Buzzword. I think they'll struggle to get home. And, you know, although he races like a stayer in terms of style, I can't get over the fact that Bullet Train has got such a speedy distaff side that I just can't see him getting a mile and a half either. No,
and I think for that reason, that is why the only way that Bullet Train could be ridden would be from the front, and it would be an attempt to somehow steal it in an artificially run race. But I would agree with your thoughts on the Godolphin horses. I cannot understand why they have supplemented Buzzword. It just doesn't strike me as the kind of supplementary horse that would get a mile and a half. And Alzir looked, you know, at the tail end of last year's 2-year-old to be an out-and-out speedster. So, you know, and if you look at the prices, Alzir currently 20-1. Were it not for the fact that Fallon was in the saddle, that would be a much, much bigger price. They've only supplemented them because they've got about as much money as you. Not quite, but they're certainly up there on the rich list, yeah.
You are. But what about Workforce? I mean, he can't win it. I mean, beaten horses in the Dante don't come out and win derbies, do they?
Well, so the rule book says, but it's there to be ripped up, isn't it? I think the interesting going back to that. Goodness me, what on earth would they be thinking that at Ballydor, if Workforce were to win the derby, of course, with Kate Blanco now swerving the race, the horse that beat him so convincingly up at York. But what happened actually, if we look back on that race, it took a long time for the penny to drop with Workforce, and you know, he had only raced once before then, was a massive talking horse going in to the Dante, and it took a good 7 or 8 furlongs before the penny dropped, and the way in which he finished his race was good. Now, he's worked subsequently at Lingfield. Very rare that Sir Michael Stout sort of gets excited about work on the gallops, but certainly the vibes were that they were very, very happy with it. Listen, though that rule about beating horses in the Dante can't win the derby is there to be broken, I think he has got a massive chance, because I really liked what happened when he suddenly realised he was in a race at York, realised how to be a racehorse, will have learnt a very, very great deal that day, and he would be my selection for the race, I reckon.
Yeah, the bit came through his mouth that day as well, didn't it?
Yeah, it certainly did, and you know, he threw it all into the mix. He's got a chance.
Go on then, you're going to stick your fingers to the mast with Workforce, are you? Something you've done very little of over the years.
Absolutely right, yeah. It's available at 5-1 at the moment. Something just tells me that this horse is going to be backed against the favourite Jan Vermeer. You know, yes, he was very impressive in Ireland. Yes, he was a very good 2-year-old. Yes, he's got Johnny Murter in the saddle, but I'm not convinced he's going to stay a mile and a half, and I'm not sure how he's going to handle Epsom. Workforce is the one for me against the favourite. 5-1 will do.
Yeah, I'm going to go against Coolmore as well. I like the fact that Rewilding was with Andre Fabre as long as he was, and I know for the fact that Andre adored the horse and was very disappointed when he lost him to Godolphin. I mean, I just feel that he could be the horse with star quality in the field, and I'd go for him with a feeling that the best each-way bet in the race could well be Ted Spread at about 25-1. Have you got an each-way outsider for him?
I think, you know, a price, I'm just looking at it, I think probably get a little bit better than 25, so I'll give you 33-1 about Ted Spread. Probably not got one as big as that. If I were to give you a forecast, I'd have Workforce to beat Asmere. It's the one horse that we haven't used. The thing is with Asmere, he won at Chester in ground that he absolutely hated. It will be much more his ground here. Gosden thinks a great deal of the horse with masses of respect. for him as a trainer when he just brings one along. 14-1 at the moment, Asmill. Not quite as big as your Ted spread alternative, but we're chucking up some suggestions. And Dave, just to wrap up, you've made a very good argument for Wilding, but basically, as ever, you just follow the gypsies.
We'll end that there. What about the rest of the card?
Well, I mean, it's a great race, isn't it? I mean, the second race, the Woodford Stakes, live on BBC One. It's over 6 furlongs. I like Richard Fahey's horse, Premier Clarets. It ran just over a fortnight ago. Rated 100. Premier Clarets will do for me in the second race, the 2:10. I don't know if you've got an alternative in the Woodcut.
I've been tipped up Tommy Stack's High Award with Johnny Murter on it. I mean, he's not known for coming over with something without a chance, is he?
Absolutely, yeah, and you wouldn't be put off by that run a fortnight ago. It finished 4th. He's got a decent rating, and yeah, we'll put those two in the mix: High Award and Premier Clarets in the Woodcut.
What about the big sprint?
Or the dash? Well, I think this is going to be. I mean, it's never easy to find one. We had an 11-1 winner last year, Dandy Nichols, of course, the Sprint King. He's bought pretty much everything as usual, including the stable cat. Strike Up the Band would have a chance on his very best form, but I really like the young horse Hawkeye the New this term. A couple of good wins en route to Royal Ascot. I think Kieran Fallon and Jim Goldie can pick up the dash. Hawkeye the New at 3:15.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he won over further at Newmarket last time, but this really does look to be his proper trip, doesn't it?
It certainly does, yeah. I mean, it's not easy, and, you know, you can't rule Dandy Nichols out. He loves the race, he loves these sprints, but I think Jim Goldie's horse could just be a little bit special over 5 furlongs.
Come on, you know everything. One more tip for the day, and I'll give one more as well. But obviously, you know, we'll give age preference and go to you first.
Oh, goodness me. Third race, the Group 3, the Princess Elizabeth. Been off the track for a very long time, but, you know, she was smart last year. Antara for Frankie Dettori and Godolphin. I think she's got a big chance against, you know, the celebrated horses of Regan. We'll go with Antara in the third race for Frankie.
Right, for me, the best bet of the day comes in the 5:20, Kevin Ryan's Parisian Pyramid. Now, this horse ran well at this meeting last year over 7 furlongs when he was trained by Dandy Nichols, but he's clearly better over today's 6 and comes here on a mark just £3 higher than when he won at Goodwood a fortnight ago. He's going to take some beating. Jamie Frank Spencer will ride him prominently. And from track 2, well, he can do what he wants. I think that will be your bet of the day.
I'll follow you, Dave. I'll gladly follow you.
Great. That's brilliant, guys. Before you go, David, can I ask you one quick question? What are your first memories of the Derby? I mean, how far do we have to go back for that?
Oh, goodness me, without a shadow of a doubt, it would have to be Chris Kinn in 2003. It was when Vodafone sponsored the race. I'd managed to successfully break my way into their hospitality tent. They still don't know about that. And I joined in what was one of the great Derby gambles. It was Sir Michael's down 16-1 in the morning. I wasn't up that early because of a pretty big night the night before, but I got a bit of the 10-1. It went off a very short price. Chris Kinn winning the Derby in 2003 would be, without any question, my fondest Derby memory.
And you, David Mitchell?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I can remember my first memory of the Derby was when Santa Claus won back in 1864 or whatever it was. I can remember rushing back from school, determined to watch Scobie Breesley drive the beast home, only to get into my grandparents' house and to find out that they hadn't got the telly switched on at the appropriate time. Well, not many people who are listening will remember that tellies in those days used to take about 5 minutes to warm up. So it finally lurched into sight with Breesley riding the thing back into the winner's enclosure. That's my first memory of it. The best memory, quite frankly, is Nijinsky, who was probably the most spectacular horse I've ever seen. Not saying he's the best, but he was the most spectacular.
Now, David, to finish off today's podcast, as we've done in the past, a question for you, the racing expert. I noticed that Olympic sprinter Jamie Bolsh is going to take on a thoroughbred racehorse at Kempton over 100 metres later this month. Have you ever taken on a horse?
I think that question's a load of bullshit.
Thanks for that, David. You've been working on that all morning, I can see. That concludes today's podcast. Good luck over the weekend if you've got any bets on at the Derby or elsewhere. And we'll be back in a few weeks' time with a daily podcast for the Ascot Festival. Thank you.